The July 1889 find in Nampa, Idaho of a small human figure during a well drilling operation caused intense scientific interest last century. Unmistakably made by human hands, it was found at a depth of 320 feet, which would appear to place its age far before the expected arrival of man in this part of the world. This is according to accepted evolutionary dating techniques. Although all but forgotten by the general scientific community, the evidence when viewed without evolutionary bias still sounds convincing over a century after its discovery. The small doll is composed of half clay and half quartz, and according to experts it was not the product of a small child or amateur, but made by a true artist. Though badly battered by time, the doll's appearance is still distinct. It has a bulbous head with barely discernible mouth and eyes, broad shoulders and short thick arms. There are also faint geometric markings on the figure, which represent either clothing patterns or jewellery. They are found mostly on the chest, around the neck and on the arms and wrist. The doll is the image of a person of a high civilization. Unlike the many ancient human artifacts and bone finds in the gold-bearing gravels in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California last century, the Nampa image was a sole clue to an ancient landscape now buried deeply under the surface. As such, it's more difficult to claim it's excellent evidence of ancient man in North America. Nevertheless, the evidence for the genuineness of the Nampa image seems weighty. The condition of the image would present a very sophisticated challenge for someone of the early frontier. Furthermore, while one might envision a motive for a hoax, the people involved were always described as citizens of stature in the community and trusted in their words. Lambertville High School was built in 1854 in Lambertville, New Jersey. A fire destroyed much of the school in 1926, but it was remodeled and rebuilt in 1927 and used until June 1955. There are many that have expressed the fact that once the school was reopened, it was never the same. The students were not as delightful as they were prior to the fire, and everyone that worked throughout the school seemed to be possessed by a dark force. Many paranormal investigators and historians that have studied this period of history have made claims that the original fire seemed to make the location a target for forces that were relatively evil. There are many types of paranormal activity surrounding the school. The activity has led it to be considered one of the most haunted places in New Jersey. One of the most popular events are the chalkboard drawings that are said to be in the region of the second floor of the now abandoned structure. When looking at the blackboard on this floor, you will discover that the drawings are literally etched into the blackboard. It's unknown as to whether this was done before or after the fires, but many believe that it's the work of the spiritual world. One person has said that he and a friend went looking for an adventure. They were looking around the old building about to leave when they heard two screams coming from what seemed a little girl. The sound was coming from behind them, but when they turned around there was nothing to be seen. The school was demolished in 2012. Hessdalen is a small valley in the central part of Norway. At the end of 1981 through to 1984, residents of the valley become concerned and alarmed about strange, unexplained lights that appeared at many locations throughout the valley. Hundreds of lights were observed. At the peak of the activity, there was around 20 reports a week. Project Hessdalen was established in the summer of 1983. A field investigation was carried out between January the 21st and February the 26th, 1984. 53 light observations were made during the field investigation. There was additional field investigation in the winter of 1985. However, no phenomena were seen during the period when the instruments were present. Lights are still being observed in the Hessdalen Valley, but their frequency has decreased to about 20 observations a year. An automatic measurement station was put up in Hessdalen in August 1998. One witness said the following: "At 8:50 PM we observed two white flashing lights above the trees. The lights were first seen on the right before they disappeared, and showed up to the left seconds later. Then they disappeared completely. After about 5 minutes the two white lights came back where we first saw them. There they stood for around 30 seconds before they disappeared completely. It all lasted approximately 10 minutes in total. We then walked along the road towards the north. I can't think of what these lights could have been. We heard no noises and the objects were extremely bright. Sometimes the lights are as big as cars, and can float around for up to 2 hours. Other times they zip down the valley before suddenly fading away. Then there are the blue and white flashes that come and go in the blink of an eye, and daytime sightings that look like metallic objects in the sky. Theories for what these objects are range from the unique geology of the valley to UFOs. The Grunch Road monster is an alleged chupacabra sighting in New Orleans. The Grunch is described to be an elaborate cross between the canid and reptilian chupacabras. New Orleans residents have so named the creature the Grunch, but sightings and tales, unlike its cousins, seem to go back further into Louisiana history than any other areas of the world. The Grunch story supposedly goes back to the Crescent City's early roots. New Orleans was founded on August 25, 1718, by the French Mississippi Company. The earliest reports of the creature are said by locals to date to this period. The real Grunch Road was located in a remote part of eastern New Orleans near the community of Little Woods. Most people only ever encountered Grunch Road by accident. A dead end of scant shales and sand, sheltered by overgrown woods and great tall water oaks. It's led into the ferny darkness of the major town highway of Hain Boulevard. From ghastly goat people and several ghosts of who only knows what. Stories of floating lights and strange cries in the night continue to this day. Photos of a creature alleged to be the Grunch have surfaced over recent years, keeping the legend of the Grunch Road alive to this day. Is it feasible that the subtropical rainforests of Australia are home to a gigantic lizard of 20 to 30 feet in length? As for the creature itself, it's not something created out of the minds of the fancy-driven or the deluded. Thousands of years ago, Australia really was home to such an immense beast. But one question some people ask is, do they still live despite the fact they've been declared completely and utterly extinct? The creature in question went by the name of Megalania, a huge monitor lizard that roamed Australia 40,000 years ago. It got its name thanks to Richard Owen, a paleontologist of the 1800s. Aside from crocodiles, very few prehistoric reptiles after the age of the dinosaurs achieved enormous sizes. Depending on whose reconstruction you believe, Megalania measured anywhere from 12 to 25 feet from head to tail and weighed in the neighbourhood of 500 to 4,000 pounds. Paleontologists speculate that Megalania was the apex predator of Pleistocene Australia, feasting at leisure on the prehistoric animals that shared its environment. The great monitor lizard would have been relatively immune from predators itself, unless it happened to spar with two other predators that shared its late Pleistocene territory: the marsupial lion or the quincana, a 10-foot long 500-pound crocodile. One interesting fact about Megalania is that it's the largest identified lizard ever to have lived on the planet. Many consider it unbelievable that significant numbers of 30-foot long monster lizards could exist in stealth in the wilds of Australia, and not be found or captured. But let's take a look at what we know of this undeniably controversial saga. For years, reports have surfaced out of Australia of such creatures. Weird Australia notes that sightings of massive lizards in Australia were recorded in both the latter part of the 19th century and the early decades of the 20th century. Some of the old reports cited by Weird Australia sound very much like the surviving examples of Megalania. Aaron Justice, in an article titled "Megalania Dragon of the Australian Outback," said the following: Megalania might not be constrained only to Australia. Some sightings suggest it may live in New Guinea. A French priest in the 1960s was travelling upriver with a native guide in order to reach his mission. During the trip, he spotted a large lizard laying on a fallen tree in the sun. Cryptozoologist Rex Gilroy has been able to put together a compilation of such accounts. One in particular is well worth noting. Gilroy, during the course of his investigations into the claims that Megalania still lives, had the good fortune to meet with a soldier named Steve, who told Gilroy a fascinating story. It was in late 1968 that Steve, serving in the Australian military at the time, was taking part in an exercise in Queensland, specifically in what was termed the Normanby Range. One part of the exercise required Steve's unit to negotiate a particularly treacherous and dense swampy area. As the team did so, they came upon a cow's body. Something had dragged the cow for a considerable time, before eating huge chunks out of the animal. More significant lizard-like prints were found in the ground, all of which were close to 2.5 feet in length. As amazing as Steve's story was and still is, It may very well have been nothing less than a close encounter with a monster that science and zoology assures us became extinct thousands of years ago, but which against all the odds may still be with us. So do you think that Megalania could still exist in some parts of Australia? Let me know your theories in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.